Hey there, Jiu-Jitsu fans, this is Coach Roy, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about literacy and how literate are you in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Maybe you're speaking a few words, maybe you're able to have a whole conversation, maybe you're even beginning to write poetry. And when you do, you know it. If you're curious about how literate you are in your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, stay tuned. Coming up next. So literacy in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You know, when I am talking to my students, and I've been training for 16 years now, I just received my black belt, believe it or not, after 16 years. I know what you're thinking, quick learner. Number of reasons why, many of which is just my style of learning. I read slow, but I comprehend for a long time, and I think maybe that's interestingly similar to what we're kind of talking about right here, is that I don't necessarily grab onto things super fast, and I don't have photographic memory. I don't have recall of certain things without a lot of work. But once I get it and I synthesize it into my everyday life, and I can tell story problems with it, I'm pretty good with it. And that helps me in my teaching, it helps me in my understanding, it helps me throughout the rest of the applications of life, really. And one thing that came to my mind the other day as I was on a completely different topic, not related to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it was related to being articulate in your speech as a professional, as an adult, as a young adult, learning how to articulate, learning how to tell story, learning how to mobilize and motivate people to do things, to accomplish things, to lead a team, to argue a point. And as I was thinking about that, one has to develop a pretty decent sized vocabulary, yes, but then on having that vocabulary, they also need to know how to execute that vocabulary. They need to know how to use the words appropriately and at the right time, in a way that stays within context and paints a picture that the listener can understand and is interested in. And what came to my mind was the parallel of literacy in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When we first start Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we basically can't communicate at all. We might be coming from a different art, or we might be coming from a different sport, which gave attributes that were code hacks for the lack of art, the lack of technique, strength, physical attribute, weight, good scrambles, good cardio, aggressive behavior. Those are a problem, and they're a problem for everybody, regardless of how much training you have as a martial artist, especially if you're weaker and less athletic. However, that stronger, more athletic attribute might only be 3 words in the full vocabulary: crush, scramble, smash. And once the other martial artist figures out that game and they have 12, 20, 30, 50 different words in their jiu-jitsu vocabulary, like space management, leverage, open guard, spider guard, underhooks, timing, technique, the argument between the 3-word vocabulary person, though stronger and more athletic, is going to be defeated by the person with 20, 30, 50-word vocabulary, because they're able to modify their sentence structures in a way that the 3-word jiu-jitsu player can't understand. And that analogy is kind of resonating with me. It's actually really resonating with me, and it seems to be resonating with my students as I'm trying to help them understand. I know this year you're a white belt, you only got a few words in your vocabulary, and so therefore when you come up against somebody who's got a few more words, you can't really hold a very good argument. But you're going to get those words. You're going to learn those words. You're going to learn when to use them, how to use them, why to use them, what story to tell based on the listener, based on the person you're competing against. And if you gather enough words in your vocabulary where you can become extremely articulate, you could probably win that fight, even if they outweigh you, even if they outpower you, even if they can out-scramble you. It's not easy, but neither is speaking well. Neither is formulating good word and sentence structures to make sense to somebody. So my challenge to each and every one of us in the jiu-jitsu community is, yeah, you can all get tough with a few words and be a problem to somebody until they hack your code. And if you've got a password that's only 3, I don't even think we allow 3-digit passwords, but let's just say that it's only 3 or 4 digits or characters, that's a whole lot easier to hack than if you have a 12 to 16 character mixed with numbers and capitals and different characters. That's a lot harder security password to hack because it's way more complex. So what type of jiu-jitsu are you formulating? Do you want to formulate a literate art, or do you want to stay illiterate? And that's the question I asked for myself. It's easy to hack that code and muscle your way through because you just can't find the word at the time. They are getting the upper hand. You don't want to tap out. You don't want to lose that sparring match. And so instead of trying to adopt more language to argue your way through it with more finesse and more art and more poetic beauty, it just seems easier to smash, to crush, and to pass, and use physicality to finish the fight. Well, that only works as long as you always have somebody weaker and less athletic than you. That's not the people we worry about. The people we worry about are the ones who are stronger, heavier, and faster. And that's why we want to build a better vocabulary in jiu-jitsu. That's the thoughts for this episode. I hope it helped. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help. For those of you that reached out to me and congratulated me on my black belt, thank you so much for the vote of confidence. It's a great journey. Let me know if you have any questions. And until then, stay on the mats.